If you look at the last decade, one of the big things that has happened is the emission norms. In 2000, we started off with the Euro 1, which is called the BS1 norms that came into the country. These were to be deployed in all states, and then it went to the NCR region. Then came in the Euro 2 or the Bharat Stage 2 in 2003, 2004. And subsequently, if you kind of keep going forward, Bharat Stage 4, BS4 that we call, came in April 2010. And again, these were in the 11 states that the government is talking about. With this emission norms, what has happened is the component suppliers and the OEMs have kind of thought very differently and come up with emission solutions for a greener tailpipe, which has actually helped with the reduction of greenhouse gases, cleaner environment. The other thing also that has happened is in terms of safety norms on the vehicles, talking about crash and safety norms. And we are following the ECE norms. And this is just not only for the passenger vehicles, which are personal mobility vehicles, but also it is starting to percolate in the mass transportation and public transportation. So it's been a very interesting journey in the last 10 years, and looking for a more exciting journey going forward. So in terms of the technical advancement, if you look at safety, the introduction of anti-lock brake systems, electronic stability control. You're talking about norms in terms of braking standards, talking about seat belts, passive and active safety. These two, the passive and active safety, have been very, very advanced in the last 10 years. Today, if you look at most of the vehicles that are manufactured locally also in India, they have ABS systems. In addition to that, because of the infrastructure that has come out, the expressways, the highways, there were people traveling at 110, 120 kilometers an hour. All these are really necessary for passenger safety and for road safety and driver safety. So I think we've done a terrific job in the last few years. Yeah. Very interesting question, I would say, and a very interesting thought there. With regard to the infrastructure, if you see again in the last decade, we've really got the golden quadrilateral. We've got highways between major cities. I would say tier 1 cities, tier 2 cities, or and on these highways, you typically see people driving at high speeds. When I say high speed, it's at least 100 plus kilometers an hour, which means you need a very different powertrain, very different engine, very different transmission attributes and characteristics are required. Keeping all this together, we also have to look at fuel economy. Then you have to look at safety going further. You can't have too heavy vehicles because then your fuel economy goes out of the window. So what you want to do is you want to have lighter weight materials as well on the vehicle to offset bigger engines or high-speed powertrains. The other thing also that has come into place is high power density engines. Basically horsepower to weight ratio of the engines, and you can see that very, very blatantly in the vehicles. You look at today's engines, which are 2.2 liter engines, 2.3 liter engines. They're much more compact than the earlier versions of bigger engines, so that has helped as well. So the infrastructure and the technology and the vehicle mobility has progressed at a very fast pace, I would say, and more or less in sync. I would say that. What we are looking at also is intelligent transportation systems. With the introduction of tollways and with the introduction of these expressways, it is also getting more and more prudent to look at intelligent transport systems, just in case somebody needs help on the highway, automatic toll collection. All these are also coming in place. So it's a holistic growth of the mobility industry, the infrastructure, and also intelligent transport systems. Well, one of the big things that we probably will run into a crunch is manpower. The kind of technologies that are coming into place in our vehicles today, we really need people with skill sets that are very different from before. We need trained manpower. Now, are the academia and the institutions that are training these individuals or engineers, young engineers, are they able to kind of get engineers who are ready to be deployed or ready to work in the workforce right away. So for that, a lot of OEMs and a lot of companies and a lot of institutes, what they've done is they have partnered with the academic institutions to tailor-make courses which are ready for the industry. So there are quite a few of these programs in the country. The other thing that most of the industries have started also doing is they have started patronizing some of these institutes so they can kind of harness the talent. Many of these companies have also started internships for students. They're also having training programs before they actually put the people on the job inside the company. So they hire people, put them on a training program inside the company, and then actually put them on the job. So in terms of manpower, this is going to be one of the changing trends for the industry. In terms of power supply, yes, there is only so much power infrastructure in the country. So with more and more units coming up, I think that is something that the government and the policy makers will have to look at kind of how we enhance that. It could be in terms of solar power, it could be in terms of green manufacturing, in terms of optimizing what the power is. Now, coming to raw material, I think that's a global commodity, and there is a major influence that is out of the influence zone of the OEMs or most of us engineers. But you have seen these fluctuations in the past few years, and even in the past few months, raw material, the commodities going up and down, and that is something that we'll have to deal with. But in a bigger picture, I think some of the companies are starting to also hedge. They do a little bit of hedging on the prices of raw materials, so that's sort of helping, but again, it's a double-edged sword. I think one of the ways to kind of have the industry take a faster pace would be more from a collaboration perspective, collaborative innovation, and that is something that is important, looking at the kind of investment and the kind of skill set shortage that is available in the country. If we can do collaborative innovation, if we can do collaborative projects between OEMs and suppliers, then what we do is we also take away the risk of delays in deployment. We also take away the risk of losing out on manpower, and also we don't duplicate resources. So I mean, in the mature markets, if you see, a lot of OEMs have worked together to develop transmissions, engines, and then they have deployed them in their vehicles. The argument there could be, what about intellectual property? But I think at the end of the day, when you deploy it on your vehicle, you're basically looking at deploying the very unique characteristics in terms of architecture on your vehicle. So intellectual property should not be an issue. And again, I mean, these are agreements that can be made upfront. In terms of collaborative innovation, some of the countries have also come up with the public-private partnership called the PPPs. And that has actually worked very well in some of the European countries and the APAC countries. Maybe that's something that we can pull in inside India. Consumer aspirations, very interesting aspect of the whole business, because you're looking at target customers, target markets. Consumer aspiration changes by the day. And again, it's actually we are also consumers and engineers as well. When we see changing cell phones in 3 months, 6 months, the models change. Whether you look at televisions, the expectation also from the consumer, I want a different feature in the vehicle, or how does my vehicle look different in 6 months or 1 year or 2 years, and can actually we meet those aspirations and expectations is something very, very challenging, because in the two-wheeler industry, you can see there's a lot of change. They sort of meet the expectations, but in the four-wheeler industry, it's not only the question of meeting the expectations, also there is a certain time period that it takes to get the product out of on the road. And there is also an investment that is related to that. So that's a balancing act between OEMs, expectations, investment, policies, regulations, and also the revenue that you can spend on such changes.